calm down. Mama, I'm fine, don't worry. Go back out to sea, sail home, sweet home, where the ships must go to get all cleaned up and put away.
Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome back. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Like always, this is a live stream. So if you are not watching on a Friday, you might have found an old stream. So welcome. We're glad you found our page. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by. We talk about all things special needs here when it comes to living in California. So programs like IHSS, Regional Center, the IEP and special education world here in California, and whatnot. So let me see here. So it looks like we have a few people here on Facebook. We are also streaming to YouTube. So for those few people who are just tuning in now, if you want to share the stream, whether it be YouTube or Facebook, to somebody or a group that may benefit from this information, great. And you don't even know what the topic is. Sorry, let me put that up for you guys. Boom. So today's topic, we're talking IHSS unions. So something that if you have IHSS in your life, in your household, or if you're a caregiver, or maybe you have IHSS for yourself, you may be interested in learning a little bit about the unions. So we're going to go over today some just some information that might be helpful for you, understanding, maybe the purpose behind it, the history behind it, how much it costs, things like that. And so to be clear, Galt advocacy is not that Galt advocacy does not work for IHSS or the state of California or the union in any way. So we're just here to provide some helpful information that hopefully might help you make a decision on whether or not you see the union as something that you want to have a part of your life. But like always, feel free to drop a comment. Let me know where you're at, who you are, and what's going on in your life. And if you have questions about this or about any of the topics we typically talk about, please feel free to just write a comment here. I'd be happy to try and address it as best I can if I have the answer for you. So welcome. Hello to you. Not sure, can't comment on Facebook. That's okay. Glad you're here on YouTube. So it looks like we have a good chunk of people already. So again, today's topic is about IHSS and the union here in California when you have IHSS. And so if this is something that you want to stick around and learn about, awesome. Feel free to send this stream to a support group or somebody or individuals in your life that may benefit from this information as well. So we'll go ahead and jump into kind of like what is the union, okay? So the SEIU 2015. So this is the union that is, it's to service the employees or the employer part of IHSS. And so when you sign up to be a caregiver of the program, you are essentially becoming an employee of the program IHSS, right? And so we're going to talk a little bit about how the money gets paid to you, who your boss is, like who do you go to for instruction of how to do the job and so forth, right? And then the purpose of the union. So the union is there to support you as an employee. Okay. Oh, it looks like we're cutting out a little bit. Let me know if you can hear me okay, see me okay. If I start to lag or anything, please let me know here in the comments. I can back up and revisit any topic. So the union it's a tool that some people like to use to support themselves or to support some of the ideas and visions that caregivers have as they continue to care for their recipients with IHSS. Okay. And so if you are caring for a loved one, say maybe your child, or maybe it's an elderly parent or an elderly loved one, you are essentially working for them through the program IHSS as their caregiver, right? But that recipient that you're working for, they don't control the money. They don't control how you get paid or anything like that. They get approved for a specific amount of hours with IHSS, and then you get to sign up to be their caregiver to work those hours. And that's about how the relationship starts and ends, right? The recipient gets to pick and choose who the provider, who the caregiver gets to be. In most situations, unless it's for a child, then the child will be provided by whoever the guardian chooses, right? So anyways, so the union can service IHSS workers as well as home care workers, I think hospice in some situations, and nursing home workers. So it can service a variety of different, I guess, worlds in the caregiving space. And so we primarily work with families on the IHSS side. And so if that's you, please let me know. And let me know if the stream's coming through okay for you guys, because I had some technical difficulties a few weeks ago when I went solo and Dakota wasn't on here. Hope I would have put this too. Show the comments. Okay, so the purpose of the union really is to create better working conditions for the caregiver. So it's catered to aim in that direction. So new policies, new rules, things like that. They want to try and make it a better experience for you as you are being the employee of this program, IHSS, right? Samantha, you said you could see it clearly. Awesome. Beatrice, you said we're good. Perfect. Thank you. And again, let me know if you guys have any questions, okay? Also, let me know what's going on. Let me know where you're from. We did an event recently. I believe Dakota and a few others. I can't remember who joined. I think Myra Galt of Galt Advocacy was a part of that event. Let us know if you were at one of those recent event that we had. Love to hear how it went from your perspective. All right, so the union also is there to help create a better environment for the recipients as well, right? So the more that the caregiver has access to resources to do their job, correctly, the better time the recipient will have being a part of this program, IHSS. And so that's going to be a really important focus for the union. And we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about how that works and kind of what they do. So some quick background about the union, and forgive me for looking over here. I just have some notes that I'm referring to for today's topic. So this union, the SEIU, was formed back in 2015. And so it's compiled of multiple unions here in California to create this one union. And so I'd say one of the biggest impacts that this union has had is advocacy, providing a voice for wages in California. That's been one of the biggest things. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Excuse me. But before the union was put in place, the IHSS wages, benefits, and the ability to advocate for yourself as a caregiver, it was very hard to do. There was not a whole lot. There wasn't like a what's the word I want to say? A venue. There wasn't a venue or a vehicle, a vessel, if you will, to put your voice out there to help make the world of a caregiver better, so that you can care for your recipient better. And so thankfully this union has been able to really impact that. And a lot of that also just goes back to the wages, right? So wages were very low for many, many years until the union came on board. And that was a big push that the union had. And so since then, every year, every 6 months or so, there's an increase in wages per county. So every county, it pay their wages with IHSS to the caregivers are different. They vary from county to county. So San Francisco County, for example, is really, really high compared to maybe Tulare County down south or Shasta County up north, right? And so your pay will be different depending on what county you work in as an IHSS provider. So pretty simple. Just want to kind of make that clear to some who may not know that ahead of time. Okay. So benefits, I don't believe there was much in the form of benefits like healthcare benefits and financial planning benefits, life insurance, things like that. I don't think there was too much from what I've gathered so far prior to the union coming in place and putting that together for the working people of IHSS, the paid providers for IHSS. And so the union has done a lot when it comes to lobbying and I want to say not protesting, but like lobbying and advocating for these things, these areas of this program to be increased and improved, if you will. Okay. Let's see. So they've put a lot of focus on your legal rights as a caregiver. So I don't know if you're familiar with some of the rights or the law jargon, I don't practice law. We don't practice law here called advocacy. We're not lawyers, but being a caregiver is tough, and there's a lot of challenges that can come with it legally. And so the union has done a really good job at protecting the caregivers by giving them certain rights, or sort of like opening up the door for IHSS to recognize the rights, the state of California to recognize those rights for you. And so that'll be in the form of things like, simple things like PTO, sick pay, vacation. I guess PTO and vacation are the same thing, but going back to the benefits and being able to get a raise every 6 months to a year, right? These are sort of like your rights as a Californian, as an employee of a program. And so, yeah, let me know if anybody has any questions on that so far. It seems like the comment section is pretty quiet today. So I'm just going to keep going until you have a question. You want to stop me, okay? We'll probably get through this pretty quickly. So, excuse me, eligibility for the union. So the union is there, and whether you are actively a part of it or not, you will be impacted in some way. However, the union does allow you to become a part of the union as a member if you wish to have some of the extra perks, if you will. So the union still will be something that, again, it will positively impact you in many ways, whether you pay the union dues or not, whether you utilize some of the benefits or not. But if you'd like to be a member where you can have access to certain things, you have the right to do this, but you don't have to do it. So we have heard a lot of people say that when they signed up to be their caregiver for their child, they went through the orientation process, and then the union reached out and said, hey, it's time to sign up for the union. And so they signed up for the union. They would pay their monthly dues every month, and a couple of years go by, and then they realize, like, hey, wait a minute, my friends who have IHSS for their kids, they're not a part of the union. They're not paying their union dues. Wait a minute, hold on. That's not fair. I don't even know what the union does for me. I've never even spoken to them outside of the one time I had when I first signed up, right? And so if you want to know if you have an option to be a part of the union per membership or not, the short answer is you have an option. It is not forced upon you to become a member of the union where you're paying monthly dues. So you have the right to opt out or opt in. And so if you're currently in the union and maybe you want to take a step back and not pay those union dues anymore, there are options. So you can sign up. You can go through, there is I think I have a thing here. Where do you go? So you have to go to the resignation of membership and authorization section to cancel. And to my understanding, you have to send a letter or send an email to this to remove yourself as a member. But we can go into this a little bit further if that applies to anybody, okay? And so as a caregiver with IHSS, you are considered a public authority worker. Okay, so anybody who works for the program IHSS, whether you are a caregiver or you work at the IHSS office, you're part of the public authority, which is like an entity of California, in my very non-political way of describing that. I don't work for the government, so you have to forgive me if that's not the right terms, but you are part of the public authority, so you are a worker of the public authority. And so this means that you are paid through your county and the state. And so, like I mentioned earlier, every county pays a little differently. And a part of that is because every county in California has their own IHSS office. And so some counties have more than one IHSS office, whereas most have one. Most counties have one. But when you go to a larger county like San Bernardino, Los Angeles County, I want to say maybe even San Diego, San Francisco, some of these really, really big counties will have more than one. LA County has like 9, I think, 9 or 10 at this point. But every county does their own things a little differently. So they all follow the same rules, same policies, procedures to some extent. But pay is one of those things that's different. So if you feel that pay is lacking in your county, if you feel like you're not hitting that wage gap appropriately, then this is a part of what the union does. The union can help fight for that. And so when they have enough workers that are kind of fed up with that, they can lobby to help increase the wages. Now, right now, thankfully, the union works together as a collective throughout the whole state. So it's hard to get rights for one specific county, but that's the purpose of connecting with your union and talking with them about those options. Susan, if no one signs up for the union, would they still exist? Do they receive any funding outside of dues? Ooh, wow. I don't know if I have the answer to that, actually. So I'd have to look up exactly how they're funded. I would imagine that because it's made up of 3 different unions, or I think 3 or 4 different unions to make one big union, there's dues that come from different places. And because it is the government to some extent, I would imagine that they get some type of funding through the state of California. And so a lot of how these programs get funded is they'll get a portion of it from the federal, they'll get a portion of it from the state, and then they'll get a portion from the county. So not clear on my end if that's exactly how the union gets paid outside of the union dues, but definitely something we can look into. You, of course, asked a phenomenal question that I don't think I have in my notes here. That would be a good thing to know, though. Thanks for being here, Susan. Thank you for the likes and loves, by the way. If you want to take a moment to like the stream, love it, that's great. That kind of helps push it out a little bit to get this information to people who are looking for union-based information or just IHSS info in general. And again, if you want to take a moment to share the stream or tag somebody in this or tag a support group, that also kind of helps push these streams around a little bit throughout Facebook and YouTube. So something else that the union helped kind of make a normal thing is overtime. So remember we talked a minute ago about your rights, right? So it is your right here in California to have the same type of overtime rights as a typical job if you were to work at somewhere else outside of like a government type job. And so if you are working with IHSS as a caregiver and you're claiming more than 40 hours a week, you have the right to overtime. Overtime is time and a half. And so, excuse me. And so the union helped really standardize that throughout the state to make sure that everything is uniform, so that no matter what county you're in, no matter what part of IHSS you work for, if you are a caregiver, you are entitled to overtime pay. So pretty cool. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Let me know if we're following. Let me know if we're tracking what I'm mentioning here, guys. Let me know if you have any more specific questions, because again, I'm just going to keep going down the list of my outline here. We might wrap up pretty quickly today. Now, of course, overtime can vary depending on the recipient. So there are some like Medi-Cal programs. So when you sign up for IHSS, you have to be a part of a specific Medi-Cal program. And so there's a couple of different Medi-Cal statuses that they'll like put you in, depending on your eligibility. And so that can determine whether or not you can actually claim overtime for a certain recipient. So thankfully, most recipients are going to qualify under the standard CFCO program, which allows them to have as many hours as they need up to the maximum, where you can claim all of their hours, including the overtime hours. Samantha, so what are the dues going towards? Another great question. So to my understanding, the dues help go to funding the union itself to help grow it and improve the integrity of what the mission is. And so it also allows you to benefit from them directly through some of the membership perks, if you will. So again, the union that is there as a big umbrella over everybody who works for IHSS. But if you pay union dues, you would be a part of the membership aspect of it, where you can use the union for like direct support in some ways. And so I'll go into some of those membership like aspects of it. And this is where kind of some of the pros and cons are going to come up, where you as the recipient or the provider rather get to kind of decide if you feel like this is something of value to you. But being a member, it allows you to also go get things like, the insurance perks, right? I think even like 401k stuff nowadays. I think it also can affect other hourly benefits too, to my understanding. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, health insurance, medical, dental, vision, and all that jazz. Being a part of the union also will allow you to have access to certain like training curriculums, like CPR trainings, Alzheimer and dementia care. And to my understanding, you also can access some of these things without being a part of the union, but the union dues help pay to help make these courses and these programs possible. So hopefully that answers your question, Samantha. Thank you for being here. It's a great question. Being a part of the union also helps, I think, allow you to be a part of, like some pension style programs. It's a little unclear if there is an actual pension with IHSS as a worker, but it is something that I saw. So let me know if anybody who's a longtime IHSS worker, paid provider, if you have any information on that. I would love to learn a little bit more myself. Other member-only benefits, or these would be member-only benefits, would be discount programs. So you can gather discounts from programs that partner with the union. So if that's something you've taken advantage of before, thank you, Samantha. Thanks for being here. Good questions. Let us know if you've utilized that before at all. Life insurance options, we mentioned that. Financial assistance resources, which we know that are very, very hard and difficult to navigate here in California. So it's nice to have a little bit extra help there with that. And as far as dues and fees go, so it would be 3% of your gross pay. So whatever your monthly hours are that you get paid for, if you get $500 a month or you get $5,000 a month, the union dues would be roughly 3% of whatever you're getting paid. That's how I've gathered and understood it myself. And it automatically gets deducted from your paycheck every month or every, biweekly, however often you get paid. Sorry. So this is what some of the dues are funding. Okay. So it funds contract negotiations. So a big part of, again, what the union does is the union has to lobby, negotiate, and sort of fight for some of your rights as a caregiver. And so that means that there's a lot of busy work that goes into this. And the union workers do have to receive funding to get that. And so again, I'm guessing they get some funding outside of the union dues, but I'm not sure. But the union dues will allow them to exercise those abilities as a collective to go to the state, go to the capital, Sacramento, and lobby for additional, benefits that you may need, or helping, again, fight the pay increase gap there so you can continue receiving your pay increases and so forth and have like a fair wage in your county. It also, other advocacy efforts as well. They do have like representation services with the union that come with your membership. However, it's a little unclear exactly how far they represent because it is informal representation to some extent. But if you're needing help fighting, a denial of some sort or additional hours you may need for a certain category, those are some of the things that they can help with. Okay. So if you are a member of the union, you also get to take part in voting on some of the contracts and union leadership, who gets to be running the union or a part of the union in your district. You get to even participate in some of the union meetings where they talk about all of the changes that they want to see, their vision for the future for IHSS. And so it's important that if you see yourself as a longtime IHSS worker and you want to be a part of some of those changes, maybe a little bit more hands-on, then it might be a good fit for you to join the union and be a part of those meetings, be a part of those discussions, and help vote on these contracts to make sure that your rights as a caregiver are being heard, right? So the union does need that. And so if that feels like a task you want to take on, you have the energy and the mental capacity to do that. I know it's a lot to ask for a lot of the families that watch our streams here and work with Galt Advocacy, because we know you're a lot of parents of special needs children and young ones with special needs. But any IHSS caregiver, I'm sure it's a lot to ask of. But if it's something that you could see yourself being a part of and that interests you, I would highly recommend looking into it. And so we'll drop some contact information for the union where you can call them, or their website. You can gather more information directly from the website. You can enroll through the website directly, to my understanding. You can also enroll by just calling their 1855 number, which we can pin in the comments. If Teresa, if you're watching, please do that. That would be awesome. So going back to opting out of the union. So if you are in the union and if everything we talked about doesn't align with your vision and what you like to see and you want to opt out of the union, you do have to submit a formal request to opt out. And so some people can only opt out of a specific window. So it depends. I don't know what the factors are there, but it depends on when you signed up. So you always want to confirm directly with the SEIU 2015 and refer to the template. So there's the template that you can find online, which we also can maybe send if you're needing that. So we have a template here that we can send to you so that you can submit a formal request to opt out if you wish to. We don't encourage you to. We want you to make that decision for yourself. If you see value in being a part of the union, stick it out, add your value, be a part of those meetings, help push those contracts through to change the way that caregivers are paid or supported, so that you can help benefit from that. Okay, or your recipients can benefit from that. Samantha, I have a question off topic. The older my son gets, the more hours allowed. He's 8 years old, and I feel like he's full care, but I need the full hours allowed isn't matched. But I feel the hours allowed isn't matched. But the caseworker said only way to get max hours is protect supervision. So the hours, this is going to sound a little silly. So the hours are not based on age, but they can be. The categories are based on age to some extent. So the older that your son gets, the more access to additional categories he can have, which then in turn would increase the hours if the need is there, right? So for example, if there's 20 categories with IHSS and you have a child who's 4 years old, well, some of those categories are not going to be there they're not meant for 4-year-olds, right? Like meal preparation, driving to and from doctor's appointments, like standard checkup visits, or yard work, cleaning the house. IHSS won't typically assess a 4-year-old for a lot of those categories, right? But bowel and bladder care, that's absolutely something they'll assess for a 4-year-old, because at 4 years old, you should be potty trained at this point, or at least learning and going through that process, right? So to answer you a little bit more directly, Samantha, so yes, in a way, as your son gets older, the more categories of IHSS will be open for him to be eligible to be assessed in. And so if he needs time or support in those categories that he is now eligible to get approved for, then yes, your hours would increase. Now, the maximum amount of hours of IHSS is 283 hours per month. Most of the time, if somebody has 283 hours, a lot of times you'll see that they also have protective supervision and or a lot of paramedical hours. So if your son's not very medically fragile and they don't have a lot of paramedical hours, then in order for them to get to that 283 maximum, they probably would need protective supervision on top of like almost maxing out in every other category. And so we don't see that often with 8-year-olds. It kind of just depends, right? So I couldn't tell you just right now if your son should have the full 283 or if he shouldn't, if qualifies for it or if he doesn't. But it is something that we can teach you. So if you wanted to reach out to our office, or maybe Teresa, if you want to, we can probably make a post about the functional limitations and ranking system. We've gone over that before in the past, but we can teach you how to sort of calculate your own hours. To some extent, we can definitely help with that though. So Samantha, you're welcome to call our hours. Oh, Teresa, thank you for posting this information, by the way. So if anybody wants to call the union, there's the number right there. Samantha, you said he's full assistant, 24-hour care. So it's possible that he needs protective supervision, right? If you feel that his needs, you said that they already maxed out paramedical already. So he has a good amount of paramedical, okay. He's at 174. Okay, so he's at 174, which is a big chunk of hours for an 8-year-old, which is good. I'm glad that they're giving him like a healthy amount there that can really help take care of him and pay you as the recipient. However, you're right, that's not the maximum, and that does not include protective supervision. If it did include protective supervision, it would be up to 283. So it's very possible that your son could qualify. If you don't mind sharing, does your son have a mental impairment like autism, intellectual disability, or anything of that nature, or are his needs strictly physical? If you don't mind sharing that, please do, and we can maybe elaborate a little bit more. And Teresa, okay, perfect. Thank you, Teresa, for dropping the template in there. So if anybody wants to have the template to opt out of the union, there it is. Thank you, Teresa. You are awesome. Samantha, you said they denied him because they said he can't walk or cause harm. Okay, so thank you for sharing that, Samantha. For protective care, he'll also pull out his G-tube. Samantha, I think we need to chat because I want to go back to this for a moment. And you also said yes to both. So he does have a mental impairment and he's physically fragile. Okay, so can't walk or cause harm. So protective supervision, again, is going to be strictly for those who are a danger to themselves because they're mentally impaired, cognitively impaired, where they don't understand how to keep themselves safe. They'll engage in a dangerous behavior and not know or understand that it's dangerous, right? They require that extreme high level of supervision. So when a child or an adult is physically limited, a lot of times IHSS will use that as a reason to deny and say, well, if they can't walk, then they are considered immobile. If they're considered immobile, then they can't physically place themselves in danger. Now, that would be true if this person is paralyzed. If they're paralyzed and bedbound completely, meaning that the only way that they would actually cause harm to themselves if they didn't eat food to sustain life, then that person wouldn't qualify for protective supervision. But if that person can move their arms, move their limbs, and pull out a G-tube or mess with a G-tube, then they are physically capable of putting themselves in harm's way. So Samantha, it definitely sounds like you could have a case for protective supervision for your son. I can't confirm that or deny that here on the stream because I just don't know. But we would love to talk with you. So give our office a call. Get on my calendar or Nicole's calendar. We'd love to take a little bit of a deeper dive for you and see if protective supervision is possible. You said yes. They said the only way is if he was able to walk out in traffic. So that's a very common misconception. A lot of social workers will say that, but it's just not true. You can get protective supervision without having the ability to walk. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing so much information. This is really helpful. Teresa, how are they funded? Mostly from member dues. However, they partner with training or workforce programs that provide the funding with grants and occasional political fundraising. Thank you, Teresa. That was kind of where my mind was going. So thank you for putting it so eloquently. Nice. So I think, Samantha, that was your question earlier, right? V, hello everyone. I have a question. My mom receives max hours. She has dementia and it's a lot of work. At the end of the month, I will be moving my boyfriend to get married soon. My question is, will she get her house deducted? Also, he makes over 100,000 Medicaid. So V, if you want to chat with us privately or somebody in the comments, if you want to address V, or most certainly can, but we can talk a little bit more privately about that situation for you, okay? So Teresa said, if no one signed up, technically the union would still exist. It just wouldn't be as effective. Okay, so that's so simple, yet that helps clear it up. Teresa, thank you for sharing that. I don't know why my brain didn't just go to that. So the funds, again, the dues that you pay as a part of the union help grow its impact into the caregiver's life as a whole. Right? So yes, like Teresa said, it may still exist, but the funding is what helps pay for the advocacy part of it. It helps pay for helping fight and get those contracts moving, right? That does require a lot of money for the state of California to do. So yeah, it also, again, allows you that special part of it, which you get to be a part of those discussions, whereas you wouldn't be if you're not a member. You got it, Samantha. Thanks for being here. Sounds good, V. We'll try and help you out. We'll try and see if we can understand the situation a little bit better. And if we don't have the answers, we can absolutely try and refer you to somebody who can answer your questions. Anna, protective supervision is 195 hours on its own. And those hours would go on top of whatever other categories that person needs or qualifies for. So if they have 20 hours a month in some of the other categories together, and then they also get protective supervision, then it would be 20 hours, or we'll call it 25 hours, on top of the 195 hours. So in total, you'd have 220 hours per month with that protective supervision and the other categories approved. Off topic. After my son IHSS Protect Supervision reassessment, he got approved. However, the original application has been moved to November 2025. My question is, can I request a hearing to correct the effective date? The original application was March of 25. Excuse me. So that depends. So if this assessment, you said it was a reassessment. So the effective date will go back to whatever the notice of action says, like the newest notice of action. So if you applied in March, had an assessment, and they did not grant protect supervision, and then 8, 9, 10 months later, you got a reassessment, and then they granted protect supervision, then no, you would not get back pay. Your effective date would not go back to the original application. So feel free to elaborate a little bit further if you want to, but I'm trying to understand. So if you want to clear it up, hearing effective date to the original application. So yeah, if your application was in March, you had your assessment thereafter, got the notice of action, and it approved IHSS, but no protect supervision. You would have had to file an appeal on that notice within 90 days back last year. Now, if you're saying that your application in March, you didn't have an assessment in 2025 and they just did the assessment in November, and November was like the initial assessment, then that's a different story. You absolutely have the right to fight for that back pay effective date. So if you don't mind elaborating, Tran, if you want to kind of like talk a little bit about the timeline here, that might help open up kind of might provide some clarity, if you will. Cassie, I'm doing well. How are you today? Judge denied my son and said that he is self-directed. Basically, just closed doors, problem solved. Closed door, solved problem. He only made it to the sidewalk and not the street yet. He grabbed a bottle to drink and he can communicate. So self-direction in some ways is very black and white. It's very matter of fact, if you will, but in a lot of ways it can be subjective. And so when you have to go to an appeal, or when you have to file an appeal and go in front of a judge for a hearing, there are a lot of things that are left up to interpretation. We are finding that the term self-direction and non-self-direction, which is like everything to protect supervision, a lot of times the definition of it is taken out of context or forgotten completely. And then the judge or the social workers kind of form their own decision of what it is, definition of it. And then that's how they label the child or that person. So self-direction means the ability to assess danger. Non-self-direction means you're mentally impaired and you don't have the ability to assess danger. That's like the definition in a nutshell. And so if you feel that your son is mentally impaired to the point where their judgment is impacted, where they don't know how to keep themselves safe, they don't know how to assess danger appropriately for their age, then that's where the term non-self-direction would come in. Yeah, you said because he grabbed milk instead of juice, that's him communicating. She cherry picked what to write on her denial also. So yeah, it's a very tricky space. The assessment world where you got to deal with the social worker's thoughts and opinions, and then the appeals world where you got to deal with the judge's thoughts and opinions, right? So the judge and the social worker, they may have completely different opinions, but come down to the same conclusion that this person is self-directed. So I don't know how grabbing milk or juice impacts somebody's ability to be self-directed or non-self-directed per se. I guess it can be in a way, but we have to come back to the fact that it's all about this person's safety and ability to understand or not understand, right? So you're welcome to give our office a call. You're welcome to connect with us directly. We could talk a little bit more in detail about your son's limitations, and we can help you figure out if he does or does not meet the criteria for protective supervision. JD, I have a question. My son, since my son is 7 years old and he doesn't know how to shower by himself till now, and I asked the social worker about that, and she said he won't get hours for bathing until he turns 8 years old. He's turning 8 in May, and she comes the month of June. Perfect. So if he's turning 8 years old in May and the social worker is coming by for the annual assessment in June, that's perfect timing. So they can back pay back to the birthday in some cases. If it's a matter of a month, I probably wouldn't, fight it too much. But now that he's turning 8, they should be able to assess him in that area. But if you're saying that he can shower by himself now, then he may not qualify or be eligible to get time in that category, because you do have to be limited, right? You do have to have, your disability has to impact you in some way to complete that task. And so if his disability or his condition is not impacting his ability to bathe himself, then probably don't need time there anymore. But let me know if I'm understanding correctly. Alessandro, there was an IHSS lawyer who gave me the dumbest advice about self-direction. He stated that because my mother wanted to walk back to Italy from Italy in 100-degree weather meant she was self-directed. So again, we have people who have, let me see here. You said your mother. So yeah, I wouldn't be able to really talk about that too much. I couldn't really address exactly. I'm trying to read and understand your question here. But if you're saying that, I think I'm understanding that. So you're saying that she's choosing to walk, right? But the matter of the fact is the 100-degree part of it, right? So we would know that to walk a long distance in 100-degree weather, it's probably not the safest thing to do, right? So we would understand that. But somebody who's mentally impaired may not. For example, my sister with Down syndrome, right? I have a 34-year-old sister with Down syndrome, 33 years old, where her favorite thing to do is to put on a Disney princess dress and sit on the back porch and just sing Disney songs all day, right? She wears a wig and everything. She loves it. And if Molly, my sister, had the opportunity to just do that whenever she wanted, she would go out there in 100-degree weather in the sun. She's very fair-skinned. She would sit out in the sun. She would get burned, roasted. She wouldn't remember to drink water. She wouldn't remember to replenish her electrolytes. She wouldn't remember to eat food that day. She would just be happy and thrilled that she has the freedom to sing and dance and do her thing in the backyard, right? So in that case, that is a form of non-self-direction. Molly, although can choose to know and understand that it makes her feel good to sing these songs, but to do it in 100-degree weather and not understanding that that's not safe or appropriate, that's the non-self-direction part of it. So Alessandro, let me know if that kind of aligns with what you're trying to share here, because if it does, then I think you're right. I don't think that advice probably was the best, but it is also kind of hard to gather the full message there. Cognitive is 2-month-old. He's in extensive support class. Okay, so you said that, oh, this is the one where you went to the judge. How old is your son, if you don't mind sharing? I don't think you mentioned that. Alessandro, you edited the comment. Okay, let's see that. There was an IHSS lawyer who gave me the dumbest advice about self-direction. He stated that because my mother wanted to walk back to Italy from Italy in 100-degree weather, meant she was self-directed. Yeah, so again, it's just kind of the same point, right? So a little unclear as to what the situation was, but if I'm gathering it, that it's just the fact that she would walk in 100-degree weather, to me, that's enough to say that this person probably doesn't understand that that's not safe, right? He was 3 and turned 4 in March. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of be the bearer of bad news here, okay? So really quick, anybody of any age can qualify for protective supervision, technically. But is a 3-year-old or even a 4-year-old going to get protective supervision? Very rarely, very, very rarely these days. It was different 3, 4, 5 years ago. But right now, IHSS and these judges, they are just not letting they're not letting too many 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds pass through to get protective supervision. So it's not too much of a shocker. I am really sorry that you had to go through that. It's not fair that they're lumping all of the little itty bitty children into this funnel of denials, but it is very, very difficult to prove the need for a child that age. She wanted to walk from Los Angeles to Italy. Okay, see, we're starting to see something here, Alessandro, because I don't know about you, but I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if it's possible to walk from Los Angeles to Italy, let alone it being 100-degree weather. So you're right. I think that was silly. Very, very silly comment to make, that if she wished to do that and tried to do that, that means she's self-directed. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Diagnosed with pica, you should probably call our office. So pica is a little bit of a wild card one. It can be really helpful for the purpose of protective supervision, but it just kind of depends. This age still is just tough, with or without pica. It's still really tough at this age to prove the need for protective supervision. I'm going to go over any last minute notes here. Okay, I think we covered pretty much most of what we wanted to cover for the union processes and background and history, union dues. So I'll address some of the last questions here before we head out. You said he should have an assessment coming up in April. So that's just a month away, or maybe even less than a month away. So yeah, I would recommend calling our office. You can speak with Nicole. You can speak with our team, and we could see if maybe we can help you and prep you for this next assessment. But there's so much that goes into protective supervision. It's really difficult to prepare just in a few weeks. It's much more than just the child having pica, or the child having autism, or the child having behavioral challenges. This age is difficult because there's not a whole lot of evidence. There's not a whole lot of background when it comes to therapies, ABA reports, IEP reports, regional center, right? He may not even be in the regional center yet. And if he is, he's brand new to the regional center, right? So getting protective supervision requires a lot of evidence for most cases. And that can be really tricky on top of everything else to get it for a 3-year-old, but it's definitely possible. So reach out to us. Love to learn a little bit more. And it looks like you have spoken with us before. Okay. Alessandro, hospital question. I have witnessed and saved my mother's life in a hospital setting. I would say stay with her 24/7. Why can I not get even a nominal amount of hours for my efforts? It may just be a matter of how the presentation is, Alessandro. So if you want help with trying to get additional hours by IHSS that for your mom, that's something that we can help with. If you want to give our office a call, we might be able to just chat with you a little bit about how that would work and where you can go from here. Speed round, we got a few questions. V, my mom tried to walk to her childhood house in New Jersey. He clearly has no idea of what dementia does to loved one's mind. Yeah, so New Jersey is a little bit more possible, I think, than Italy. But still, that's a bit of a trek, right? Give us a call, V. I'd love to chat with you. So he said he has an IPP with regional center since 1.5. So he was a part of early start, early intervention, which is a little different. So yes, it is regional center to some extent, but not to the full capacity. So it's not Lanterman Act. So when you're under the age of 3, you are a part of something called early start, early intervention, which is something that is ran by regional center, but it doesn't mean that this person is a client of the regional center just yet. So when they turn 3, that's when they can have an IPP, like you mentioned here, right? And so the IPP, the IEP, among many other things, all these documents, they have to say certain things. It doesn't help just because you have them. That's not what helps you get protective supervision. What helps you get protective supervision for your loved one is having very specific things in these documents that most of the time they won't include unless you know what those are. And I could spend hours and hours talking about what that would be more specifically, but that's why we typically encourage people to seek out professional help there. Because there's probably lots of things that are included in the IEP that shouldn't be, or things that are not included that should be, right? And so these are things we can all help with if you want to reach out to us. More seminar information. Teresa, thank you for putting that up. Upcoming seminars. April 25th in Orange, California, and then in Glendale the next day. Nice. Thanks, Teresa. If you guys are in the SoCal area and you are in a drivable distance to Orange or to Glendale for the 25th or 26th, go check out that seminar. Called Advocacy. Would love to meet you guys. All right, everybody, that's about it. I got to get off here so that I think Nicole and Myra are jumping on at 1 in Spanish. So if you speak Spanish and you want to get some of the same information in Spanish, please come back at 1 o'clock here in about 10, 12 minutes so that you can listen to Myra and Nicole. Teresa, sorry, I'm not sure who's actually jumping on at 1, but it should be one of them, I assume. But thank you everybody so much for being here today. Hopefully you learned a little bit something about the union. I know we kind of turned this into a little bit of a Q&A, but that's always great too. And we encourage that. We love that. But if you want some help, if you need some help with kind of understanding your IHSS case for your loved one, you need help increasing the hours or getting something like protective supervision, understanding the IEP or the IPP and how those play a role with protective supervision, especially at the young age, like we were talking about here with this individual. These are all things that Galt Advocacy can support you in. So if you want to give us a ring, reach out to us on Facebook here. We'd love to help you out. But with that said, I hope everybody enjoys their Friday. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Thanks again for coming by, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.